Hello everyone. It's been a really long day today, and I thank Mr. DBSSR Shastri from Ramki and Mr. K. Srinivas Rao from Hitachi Zosen for staying back and for agreeing to give us this interview. And today we'll be discussing about the challenges in the waste to energy industry in India and what we can do to make it better or make it a sustainable solution for waste management in India. Let me start with Mr. Shastri from Ramki. So, what do you think are the main challenges major challenges that we're facing today in the waste to energy industry?
Installing a waste to energy plant itself is a challenge and is a part of the larger challenge of the solid waste management. The municipalities are struggling to come with a structured, well-moderated response to meet their own needs. And mostly the tenders are not very professionally managed.
Okay.
And there are fly-by-night operators as well as mid-core consultants who are having a field day. So the structure of the project itself is not conceived very well. That is one challenge.
Okay.
Two, there is too much of debate on technology. Though the matter is clear that what Ramki has been following is an integrated approach. By having a biological process, a composting, anaerobization, the combustible waste to the waste to energy, and minimizing the residues that goes to the land.
Yeah.
This model is ultimately the solution. Transparency in tender processing, stipulating well-reasoned financial and experience criteria, and engaging with consultants, reputed, knowledgeable consultants, is the challenge that the urban local bodies are facing.
So, in your response now, you mentioned consultants twice. So, about the mediocrity of the consultants, so could you speak a little bit more about that?
We put it, my opinion is like this. For example, if you look at the requirements of a ULB, ideally they want the waste to disappear with their acid plant, which is not possible. And sometimes many of these urban local body managers, some of them are technically educated, still fall prey to what is called no leachate, no residue, no water and whatnot, which runs like a wish list.
Right.
So when we have so much of waste accumulated to the dump sites and continue to accumulate, whether it is in Chennai or Bangalore or anywhere, the solution lies in adopting a pragmatic approach.
Right.
Very often the technology, the qualification criteria or the experience criteria or the financial criteria that is required to shortlist a project of this kind is not.
Okay. Mr. Srinivas Rao, what do you think about the criteria that ULBs have for the urban local bodies, ULB's urban local body? What do you think about the criteria that they have about no leachate or no order? What do you think about the criteria, and what is actually possible with a waste to energy solution?
Well, thank you. Basically, the urban local managers are not fully equipped with the information what exactly they would like to have in place in the corporations. Yes. Basically, the consultants they are hiring to draft their basic tender document is not so scientific also. According to our observation, just a report, recent one tender document of Patna, the total garbage available is 1000 tons and the preferred technology is only compost. Practically, which is an impossible scenario for a 1000 tons waste in the municipal corporation like Patna, where these systems are not in place. If you go to Patna, once you see the local conditions over there, Probably there is no urban transportation also not there in Patna city. No city
Okay.
buses are there.
Mm-hmm.
And very unscientific management basically. The urban managers should hire appropriate consultants to draft, give a technology note.
Mm-hmm.
Once they specify a technology, you cannot really, how can the municipal, because they are not investing it, somebody else is investing it. So who is accountable for their success and failure?
Yeah.
So this option must be given to the promoters, developers who are prospective builders to adapt appropriate technology to suit the conditions.
So, Mr. Rao is saying that the choice of the technology should be given to the providers and developers. So, do you have any comments on that?
I think we have still a larger picture. It is for the urban local body to think of its own solution.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to follow a transparent tender process and their choice of technology is X or Y or Z, not an issue.
Okay.
It's not the case that they should follow this technology or that.
Okay.
That is their option because local self-help governments are their own masters. Coming back to the question that you posed to me, we have examined only the challenge from the ULB part.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the larger challenge is also one about the lack of the promotional framework.
Okay.
When energy is by far the most valuable recoverable out of municipal waste, it can be only recovered at a certain cost, which is presently even higher than the solar PV project cost in terms of megawatt.
Okay.
Though it will not be appropriate to measure the cost of a waste to energy plant in terms of megawatt, but that is what is the benchmark in India. Ideally, it should be in terms of rupees per ton of waste processed.
Mm-hmm.
But the valuable energy that is required has to be sold.
Okay.
Now, there is a school of thought in some of the regulatory bodies where they feel that perhaps merchant power is one, which is to be really elucidated. Because municipal waste-based power is an uniform power. Out of the
Could you elaborate that a little bit?
Well, because,
For the audience, for the benefit of the audience.
because municipal waste is a heterogeneous matter, varies in its moisture, content, composition, and heat value seasonally. The base load of the plant cannot be maintained and sustained all through the year and changes and fluctuates. Therefore, the installed capacity could be higher, but the operating capacity and the net export capacity of these plants are lower. Further, unlike other renewable energy projects, there is an element of flue gas treatment, which requires certain consumables,
Mm-hmm.
which is, for example, activated carbon, which costs about ₹1,00,000 a ton these days.
Yeah, yeah.
Then the skilled manpower is not there.
Yeah. Since we got into the discussion of flue gases, could you both speak a little bit about the emissions from waste to energy industry?
Yes.
I mean, that's an issue which comes up in every debate, and it's something which has come with the technology. The opposition to waste to energy because of emissions is something which has come with the technology, even to the developing countries like India from elsewhere.
So what we will do is we will finish off this particular point where we are leading.
Sure.
So because of the moisture, heterogeneous, seasonally fluctuating waste characteristics, the power that is exportable from the municipal waste plant is inform. When it is inform and fluctuates over a little significant range, the merchant power does not suit to waste to energy as a promotional measure. Well, what are the international benchmarks? International benchmarks are many of these Asian countries, whether Taiwan or China or Singapore, they have accorded a preferential tariff, including Sri Lanka, and a combination of a preferential tariff and tipping fee is the right solution, which should come as a policy benchmark. Coming back to emissions that you have put a question, compliance with emissions that are far stringent than what is contemplated by municipal waste rules currently is a must for compliance by all the developers, and that is correct in the sense of promoting the technology and instilling confidence in the public mind.
So there is an argument saying that waste to energy might be very clean elsewhere because of the regulatory and monitoring capacity of the local bodies of the pollution control boards in Europe or US, but it might not be the same case in India. And what do you have to say about that, being a developer yourself?
There is a basic contradiction in this argument.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the modern technologies, say for example you are talking about waste to energy, the argument so goes that it is more suited to Europe or America and does not suit our waste. So when we try to replicate that experience, for example in Asia and for example in India, now you go back and say that the emissions, no, that's not the correct. The regulators are doing a good job. They have been monitoring these things. In fact, this Tata Flue system is not new. Ramki Agro Engineers itself has so many operating facilities of incineration for industrial waste, where this activated carbon and lime injection is used, and we have been meeting these norms and tested by third party. So this is well documented, well monitored, and the regulators must be applauded for this.
When it comes to the emissions, especially, most of the emissions by the general people who are ill-informed, they are exaggerations. Waste to energy in the worldwide, they have a track record of meeting with the highest and stringent emission standards of the local respective resolution. In India, as far as Hitachi Zosen India is concerned, we respect the local regulation. And Hitachi Zosen can always give a technology which has been proven very successful to meet the local regulation and local requirement very comfortably. Even we can go much ahead of this also. As of now, for example, the local regulation says about 115 milligrams per NMQP is the dust suspended particulate matter, whereas we'll be able to offer you 10 milligrams.
So you're almost meeting the regulations by a degree, 15 degrees. Yes,
something like that.
A difference of that.
And it comes to the especially dioxins and furans.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you a question about that. So generally, dioxins and furans, being carcinogens themselves, they're always the crux of the opposition to waste energy. Can you explain what pollution control mechanisms go inside a waste to energy plant to control dioxin and furans emissions? Can you explain the technology side?
Definitely I'll explain. Before I explain the technology of the dioxins and furans, dioxins will emit from your backyard burning also.
Okay.
In a compost plant will emit more dioxins than a waste to energy plant.
How is that so?
This is the experimental study by International Waste to Energy Association,
Okay.
IWAC. Even I can share you with the paper. The regulation is in India is in some areas 0.1 nanogram per NM3, and few areas it is 1 nanogram, and few states there is no specific mention about the dioxin requirements. So technically dioxins will form mostly when chlorinated plastics are combusted. And there are two ways of dioxin destructions. Usually thermally dioxins can be destructed by maintaining a furnace temperature 850 degrees, residence time of 2 seconds. Dioxins can thermally be destructed. That's one of two ways. Second,
so you control the temperature inside the boiler so that dioxins are not formed.
True, it is a controlled combustion.
Yeah, okay.
So we maintain controlled temperature, furnace pressure and other things. In a second stage in downstream change, by the reaction of carbon, activated carbon, it is an absorption. The heavy metals can be absorbed.
So you have carbon there which absorbs, not absorbs, but absorbs the dioxins and furans. Yeah. Okay.
Toxic equivalents, that's
Okay.
and heavy metals also. Not
Heavy metals also.
So as of today, all Hitachi Zosen plants worldwide, we have built more than 500 plants. Meeting stringent European regulations and US EPA regulations wherever the plants are installed. The dioxin, the emissions are not really a problem. It is mostly an exaggeration. It is not really a problem. We have the technology, even most of the technologies invented by us, suppose DNOx system, SNCR system, selective non-catalytic reduction system.
Could you explain the the concentration of 0.1 nanograms.
Yeah.
Do you explain it in everyday terms? Can you explain
No,
that?
usually
What
a
does it mean?
nanogram is 10 to the power of minus 9.
Minus 9 meters. Yeah.
Isn't it? Usually you cannot imagine a nanogram level by visual observation.
Yeah. But
People
can you put it in
say,
perspective
yeah,
for the
yeah.
benefit of?
It is a 10 kilometers, it is a 1 kilometer length river and 2 meters width and 2 meters height river. Suppose, take it a water bath.
Okay.
A tip of a needle dilution is equivalent to a nanogram.
Okay.
So usually in India, to the best of my knowledge, there is no measuring system that can detect dioxins of 0.1 nanograms, basically. So it always comes non-detectable. So there are systems are there where dioxins can be detected in nanogram concentration also in Europe. But in Europe also, most of the cases it is not online measurement, it is a sample collection.
Okay.
It is a sample collection. So this is how it is to be done. Dioxins can be controlled. So usually steel plants and metal processing industries emit more dioxins than a waste to energy plants.
Okay.
So historically, waste to energy plants have a clean track record, and as far as our company is concerned, we always respect the local regulation. At the same time, we have all the knowledge and the technology that have been proven for many years. And few of our technologies in Europe have been accepted as best available technologies to the market. And many of the things like SNCR system
Yeah.
have been invented by us.
Can you speak a little bit about the best available pollution control systems or the MACP?
It's a tough question, particularly in this context. The best available technology or MAC system is not much appreciated at this moment
In India.
in India.
Okay.
Very few people perhaps like to speak about it.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back to the emission levels, there is a sampling system, and actually the third-party consultancy, the third-party testing laboratories have been taking these samples to Belgium and getting it.
Okay. So, but that's not a challenge right now in Indian industry.
It's a challenge.
Okay.
And for when it comes to municipal waste, recently some of the urban local bodies with whom I have interacted have certain questions where they have asked me about a primary chamber and a secondary chamber.
Okay.
And perhaps that is a thought process because of their acquaintance so far with the hazardous waste and the biomedical waste.
Okay. Okay.
So one thing, as he said, Mr. Rao said, is maintaining a residence time of 2 to 2.5 seconds for the combustion product in the furnace at a temperature of not less than 850 degrees
Right.
is a good combustion practice which is built at the design stage itself
Okay.
of the furnace. Two, because the energy recovery system is part of the incineration, the flue gas loses its heat to the water, and there is a chance of the reformation of the dioxins,
Yes.
for which you need to have a sort of a system down the line, whether it is semi-dry or semi-wet or any other system. For example, in Singapore I have seen a plant where they have installed a catalyst coated fabric filter,
Okay.
whereby the dioxins are actually converted and reduced to harmless product. So the advantage over that system is that dioxins in the semi-dry process it is still absorbed and the carbon has to be put into the landfill. But in the catalyst coated systems, this is not.
So there are technologies in which you can totally reduce dioxins to negligible levels, or sometimes even to zero levels. Yeah.
0.05 is what is recorded in many of the Taiwanese plants.
Okay.
So where one Indian has also worked,
Mm-hmm.
and he has published a paper by
Okay.
name Mr. Srinivas Rao,
Okay.
different law.
Uh-huh.
So these things are available. So, but to meet the public confidence and to give credence to the technology, the full-fledged waste flue gas treatment must be started
Okay.
and should be operated well.
So if we have the pollution control systems in place, meeting the regulations or meeting the emission standards is not a hurdle for the waste to energy industry now.
Yeah, right.
Do you think there are any other hurdles or challenges for the development of the industry right now?
Yeah. What we feel, based on our little experience of 2 years in India, the main hurdle in this country is the awareness.
Awareness of whom?
Corporations.
Okay.
So they are thinking, the municipal corporations, the garbage, first point what they think is, it is a power plant, so they get energy out of it. In fact, these corporations does not know that there is no proper tariff policy in this country. They think it's a power plant. The developer, the operator is getting good revenues. He will get his payback period 8 years or 10 years.
So that's what
thereafter this plant will become free for him. Then what we get out of it? So they are not thinking, waste management, this is a waste management plant, this should be seen as a waste solution.
So they see this as an energy project.
This is the energy project.
Whereas it is a waste management project. Right.
True. It is mostly in the politicians also.
Okay.
The mindset is something like this. The politicians are thinking like this.
Do you have any comments on the awareness of municipal corporations regarding regarding waste energy?
Well, the situation is not as pessimistic as it is made out to be. It is improving. There are some very structured, transparent tender systems that have come off late. People are realizing the importance of putting in a proper disposal system for waste with a combination of technologies, not one.
Okay.
But the challenge part, as you said, mentioned earlier, there is one more angle to that. That angle is the concession agreements that are typically drafted and entered into or sought to be entered into are mostly one-sided.
Okay.
They shift the blame of, they shift the all forms of risk onto the concessionaire.
Okay.
Waste quality, quantity, site, environmental clearance, and very difficult.
What points do you think should there be a division of labor, if I can put it that way, regarding these projects? I mean, where do you think?
Numbered land, free from litigation, and with an environmental clearance is the minimum work that ought to be done by the urban local body before putting in a tender.
Okay.
The waste characterization is to be done by the developer, but there can be some data depending on his experience. There must be an element of minimum assured waste quantity, and there should be a penalty, because penalty can be performance penalty can be imposed on the concessionaire for any shortfall. Likewise, there must be a penalty for non-supply, and there should be a proper grievance redressal mechanism.
Okay.
And this grievance
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, it happens like this. It is our experience that I don't want to name this as ULBs, it will not be proper. But change of guard in the municipal corporation leads to urge to change the terms of the concession.
Okay, so what you're speaking about is the amount of time a municipal officer resides over that place is very less, because of which the terms and conditions change very often. Is that what you're coming in?
Not necessarily, sir. What I am saying is, one, there may be some commissioners who work for 3-4 years, but if his predecessor has entered into some agreement, and that agreement has already been signed and then work is going on, well, the newcomer or the new body that has come in, suppose seeking some changes to that, is perhaps not correct. But I am not saying that altogether the agreement should not be amended when the parties, both of them meet. So this grievance redressal mechanism should happen in a transparent but in a give and take manner at the perhaps the CEO level of the company involved and the CEO level, that is the commissioner. But there should be a give and take approach. There should be some appreciation.
Yeah.
This appreciation is not coming because the ULBs think that every risk is to be borne by the developer. And that is not correct. That way, the risk sharing is not evenly balanced.
So what I heard from both of you is the municipal corporations are not ready for risk sharing, but they're ready for profit sharing.
Yes.
Can we put it that way? Or they seek profit sharing, whereas they are not.
First point, I think risk sharing is very common. I mean, that is more or less 99% true.
Okay.
Now, question of profit sharing is something different. Some municipal corporations have come with a very clear, no-nonsense type of tenders where they said this is what is our minimum waste assured quantity, and you please quote your tipping fee, and then that is for us.
Sure. So
There is one element, they are also getting misguided by few fake fly-by-night companies. See, they
can you elaborate, give any
yeah.
examples on that?
Few companies are just claiming 1 ton of waste they are capable of producing 1.1 megawatt.
Okay.
So when such argument
Is that possible?
Practically, to the best of our knowledge of engineering, it is not possible.
How much is it how much is the
For
deviation?
100 tons of waste, we can produce about 1.4 megawatt
Okay, so it's about 100-degree deviation.
deviation.
Okay.
Yet in this case, the urban managers and also politicians are thinking there is enormous revenues are there in this land. These people will generate so and so quantity of power. Where this money will go? So that is how this is one type of argument that they are listening to. See, I recently met one politician. He said, "Sir, you are telling like this. Somebody has come yesterday and told this is the revenues that make this. This company will make 100 megawatts, whereas you are telling only 30 megawatts."
So there are some false claims in the
False
industry right
claims.
now. Okay. And how can the industry combat it together? Why? Because when we have false claims, we have failed projects, and when we have failed projects, the entire industry kind of comes back.
This is the place where WTRT as an organization should involve and interfere, and you have to tell the reality based on your worldwide experience.
Okay.
Coming back to challenges, we need to understand that another challenge is the financial strength of the urban local body.
Okay.
Well, we understand that they have been spending huge amounts of money on these solid waste activity, as the Bombay Municipal Commissioner told us this afternoon. May be true, but there must be a time frame by which they should honor the payment of the tipping fee or whatever the user charges, etc. Now, in our case, it's uniform or possibly all over the all over pan-India basis, that the receivables are struck a minimum of 90 days, often stretched to 6 months.
Okay.
This really puts tremendous strain on the energy, resources of the company.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, to move these papers from one table to one table is a huge energy.
So what you're saying is the urban local body should have the funds beforehand, before they start the project.
Well, ideally, I think the concession agreement should envisage a sort of what you call bank, what you call that trust and retention account sort of thing,
Okay.
into which the tipping fee money should be paid, and the financial should also be saved.
Okay. Could you elaborate that a little bit for the benefit of the viewers?
It is like this. Now we submit, for example, an operator provides service to the urban local body and raises his bill, for example, in 30 days for either having done the collection or transportation or processing and disposal, or everything in an integrated manner. Now this bill will be accepted by the urban local body. They will put this to cross-checking and several procedural formalities. It might take about a month of time. Then it goes to the finance session, and finance session will take about some time, and because of the priorities and all. And ultimately, by the time the payment is made to the concessionaire, it is minimum 90 days, and sometimes, in some cases, it is even 6 months.
Okay. Okay.
For example, these pending arrears running into several crores of rupees really makes it very tough. How can the operator be expected to run the processing industry, municipal waste processing industry, or carry on with the task of collection and transportation without getting paid, and undertake repairs, pay wages, without inviting any labor trouble?
Yeah.
This is very, very difficult. Some of the concession agreements even has imposed, or perhaps they shifted the task of the payment of the statutory arrears for the municipal employees like PF and also
Into
on
the-
the
into the-
developer.
okay.
It happened in our case.
Mm-hmm.
We have contested this.
Okay.
And typically, all municipal corporations are delaying the payments by minimum of 3 months to 4 months.
Okay. Interesting.
This is very tough situation.
Mm-hmm.
For this to overcome this, there must be some sort of, like they take a guarantee from you, a performance guarantee to enforce a project or an implementation in time. There must be a trust and retention account in which they must pay. And if they have not paid, the bank will pay and charge interest to them.
Okay. And so we spoke about integrated waste management and how your company Ramki is actually does actually believe in it. But why do you think there is still some opposition to the whole concept? Or for example, what I'm coming at is if you're doing composting, there doesn't seem to be any opposition. If you're doing recycling, there doesn't seem to be any opposition. But all of a sudden, if the same company is doing waste to energy, it's branded as a waste to energy company or something which promotes that. And
No, I don't think so.
okay,
I think the opposition is primarily because of the
NIMBY syndrome,
and
not in my backyard.
Not in my backyard. But very importantly, we must understand that many of these sites that are selected by the urban local bodies are at their disposal. They are, in many vast majority of the cases, they are existing dump sites.
Right.
Though they have been located little away from the city because of the migration, like the Bombay Municipal Corporation Mayor Commissioner explained today, there is a migration. And though the activity of waste management or waste dumping is going on, there is a dwelling that is coming around.
Mm-hmm.
And typically there is a political interference.
Okay.
So they try to perpetuate.
Okay.
So what happens is this opposition must be socially understood.
Mm-hmm.
It is opposition against the Waste Management Act per se,
Mm-hmm.
but activity per se, but not against the company or against a technology.
You're actually coming at a very important discussion, which is about the not in my backyard. Do you think it's undue or it's unjust for people to protest against such waste management projects in their backyard? Because let me explain the background. Because the industry itself has not done very well in the past, and I think it is their basic right to be able to protest against it. So taking this as the context that we are, the industry and the Indian cities are in right now, what do you think should be done by different stakeholders? And after this discussion, we'll end the interview. So what do you think that different stakeholders should do to gain the public appreciation or public acceptance? And of course, finally, they are the final beneficiaries of all that we're doing. So what do you think the industry should do?
My response to you is that whatever reservations the people have, for example, against a particular waste site location, are not unjust. It is right from their perspective.
Yeah.
So in a democracy, that cannot be the point to make. But then they should be included, and the facilities should be so constructed that their apprehensions are clear. For example, by lessening the order, by treating the leachate clearly and seeing that there is no leachate overflow, and that proper emission norms are there, and then there is an aesthetic appeal to the facility. But it is easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
It is easy. It looks like a wish list, because urban local bodies are constrained to find some good virgin lands other than the dump sites. So the identification of these dump sites should actually start. I mean, the potential waste disposal sites should start at the city planning stage, even now, not late, by adopting the GPS monitoring and identification. Preferably in area where there is an atmosphere of industry or a neighborhood is industry, so that an industry setting will give normally the dwellings will be, habitation will be away from them.
Mm-hmm.
So we should also, the local bodies also should try to adapt, but it is not easy.
Yeah.
They also have to, even if they have identified a land, tomorrow there will be a protest on the road even before the site is handed over or branded.
Yeah.
So for this, again, there should be some political.
So yeah.
If the opposition resistance is intentional, we cannot really do anything.
Okay.
There is a law. we have a pollution control system. There are respect to boards are there. They give consent to the establishment. So this responsibility rests with the respect to pollution authorities. Once they give clearance, it is understood that everything they might have checked.
Okay.
Isn't it? Then people will come and protest. It is, as Sastri said, it is the responsibility of the, their right to protest it. I don't know. If they are not informed properly, it is our duty to inform them properly. This is the advantage of the waste to energy plant. If the dump site is lying there, the adverse effects of the dump site is much more than the waste to energy plant, if you see it. So this is the way we should make them understand, and also the aesthetics of the plant. This all makes them very well. If their intentions are only to, trouble you, this is also possible in this country.
Yeah.
Then the developer will have to face a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen such plants in Hyderabad itself, stopped operations, stopped construction for 6 to 7 months, to manage this issue.
Yeah.
So they pull to the court of law. Many things are there. So this is where the government should come forward and do such if they want to really encourage waste to energy or waste management projects as a whole, they should really work with a wholehearted way, and the political will also should be there.
Political will is important to take waste management ahead. Okay.
It is there. In fact, in certain cases, I see that in Hyderabad itself, GHMC, there is some
The Greater Hyderabad Municipal
Greater
Corporation.
Hyderabad Municipal Corporation. There were some misgivings to a section of the employees or staff, drivers, etc. So they went on strike a couple of times. The government took the right measures. The urban local body, the Hyderabad commissioner and his officers, they stood to their ground. They convinced them, and there was a PIL against the project, saying that waste is the property of the Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation. It cannot be entrusted to somebody. It is arising basically out of misconception. But in this case, the government of Andhra Pradesh and the municipal corporation did very well and supported in this case. So
Okay.
it cannot be said that no urban body is coming to the rescue. That's not. We have not generalized it.
So it's an evolving industry right
Things
now.
are, things are happening, and that something more has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I would suggest that the urban local bodies should continue to exercise more restraint in choosing their partners for solid waste management through a little more transparent process, and by stipulating some meaningful eligibility criteria.
So from the municipal corporation's point of view, they should improve the tendering process. They should make it transparent, and they should also make better eligibility criteria. So that's from the municipal corporation's point of view. And you said that from the government point of view, there should be some political will to make this happen. And what do you think should we'll discuss about the public later on, and what do you think should the industry itself do to take itself forward?
The basic thing is, first point, to survive this industry, there must be a valid tariff policy. Then only things will happen. Why the promoter should invest their money and take risk in investing waste energy plants? They may have corporate social responsibility, but to some extent. It's not, they are not charitable organizations.
Yes, but that's from the policy perspective. But what do you think the industry itself should do to make the situation better?
The industry has a responsibility to see that whatever it has proposed to do in the tender or when the agreement is awarded, they must do and maintain it, provide the service, and take the.
It should abide by the contract.
Rules of the game.
Okay.
Follow which most of them do.
Okay.
It's not that the industry is not doing, but the sections of industry have mistaken notions about the intrinsic economic value or gain of certain processes.
Okay.
And in the process, sometimes gross misjudgments are made, even by very reputed companies also, which sometimes makes very big companies sell costly, expensive municipal waste-based renewable power to as much low as ₹2 rupee 50 paisa
Okay.
kilowatt,
Per kilowatt hour.
which means that we are not even having the coal-based power plants are also not having such sort of a tariff. Even they are paid 0 to 50 paisa these days for
Okay.
this coal or gas.
Okay.
So this sort of adventurous bidding will cause more harm to the industry than you know.
Then do good to the company.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Okay. And did you have something to say?
No, what Yasri said is correct.
Yeah.
This
And
is spoiling this industry and taking back this tender. Actually, what is happening, the experience is, and few years back, the Chennai Municipal Corporation represented this being tendered. It has been awarded to a developer, 60 to 64 rupees tipping fee. And some other similar way, one more area that is called Peringudi.
64 rupees per ton.
Somebody has offered 20 rupees royalty. And after a few days, they have suspended the entire tendering process. For the last 4 years, nothing happened. Now they started working on it. So because of this,
cutthroat competition? Is that because of cutthroat competition?
No.
I don't.
No?
It is not cutthroat competition. It is basically ignorance, misconception, thinking that there is a large sum of money in this, and without knowing the basics, without having access to the expertise and experience. Therefore, even though it is at the risk of repetition,
Yeah.
I said stipulating a proper experience and financial strength for a bidder is a must.
Okay. So, on behalf of budding entrepreneurs, let me ask you this question. So, what you're saying is there's not. Some companies have a misconception that there's lots of money in this industry.
True.
But being industry people yourself, why are you in the industry if it's not making enough money for you, or if there's not much profit for you?
No, it will not make any money unless there is a proper system in place, usually. See, most of the cases, they are giving tipping fee only when collection and transportation is involved in the tender process. In select cases, for rare cases I can say it, there is no tipping fee for a waste to energy plant if material is delivered to the
Can you
waste to
explain what a
energy.
tipping fee is for the viewers?
To the best of my knowledge here, only one case at Thane Municipal Corporation, one bid was selected for a tipping fee where collection and transportation is not involved.
Okay.
And no wonder when collection and transportation is involved, as today morning that Commissioner of Mumbai said, 80% of their funds will go to the collection and transportation. So it is not called as a tipping fee. If you want to find a solution for waste dump, anyway you are collecting the waste to the dump site. It is not technically, it is not a problem. You give encouragement, you continue to deliver waste to the, waste to energy plant. But at the same time, you give encouragement and a sustainable model to the waste to energy operator.
So
this plant will develop.
So there will be money in the business if the municipalities can provide some tipping fee and preferential tariff. Is that no? Can we conclude?
I would rephrase your words.
Sure.
One, I have known my company. I have joined in 2007. We have been, this company is specific to waste management, whether it is industry or biomedical, electronic waste, water. So waste is a passion. And we specifically tell people to join this industry if these people have a passion for waste management and some sort of a personal goal to do something good for the society and the country is the cornerstone and the philosophy. Now, making money may not look a very good phrase to use, but to say profit is not a dirty word.
Not at all. I mean, we can make good only if we can sustain ourselves into the future. So,
yes. So, at this moment, the Indian scenario for sustained waste management operations in municipal waste sector is still not mature enough to say that there is an element of profit. But if people are able to meet their operating costs, meet and not sustaining a cash loss, that is the situation, honest situation today.
Okay.
But things will improve. Unless it improves, you cannot better the facilities.
Okay. And let's get back to the discussion of what different stakeholders should do. And generally, whenever we're in a discussion, everyone goes back to saying, "Oh, there is no segregation of waste, and that's why nothing else works, and that's why the situation is like this." So, do you want to speak about what the public should do to improve the waste management? We know about the segregation, but other than that, regarding the opposition to projects, and what do you think they should
I
do?
will answer this question.
Sure.
See, waste to energy is not against segregation. When segregation is in practice, definitely it is useful, it is beneficial to the waste to energy. At the same time, source segregation, how long it takes? To the best of my understanding, if you start today, no bins are provided to the homes. How you really separate and keep it there when they take it? Maybe if the segregation of waste at source, if everything goes well, to the best of my understanding, it takes 20 years.
Okay.
Nothing less than this. So, segregation at dump site. Again, entropy come into the picture. Disorder is very, very, very unlimited disorder there. So, entropy at the dump site, if you want to segregate it, something you cannot really segregate it.
Okay, so it's really difficult to segregate waste at the dump site.
But theoretically speaking, segregation and everything is good. That is the reason we, Hitachi Zosen India, we developed a system. It is not developed, the system is like this, and segregation is not really required to immediately to address the situation. If segregation recycling is there, is good.
Right.
But right now to address this problem, even without segregation, all systems will work. That is the technology available.
Okay.
If you insist for the segregation, and by that time segregation comes into place in operation, it may take 10 years.
Yeah.
Can you wait? The waste to energy evaluation process will not wait for 10 years.
That's where waste to energy comes into play.
It is an ongoing process, continuous process. Segregation at source.
It has to start.
It has to start. If not started in Delhi, it should start some other day.
Yeah.
And all the places.
Yeah.
So you will not, waste to energy plant will not wait for it. That is the advantage of the technology. What I mean to say.
It doesn't have to.
It will not wait.
Yeah.
So waste to energy will come only after 20 years or 10 years, when you will have all segregated waste.
Right. Okay.
So that is the technological innovation that the few companies may have made.
Yeah.
So it is possible to burn and combust unsegregated waste also.
So before we conclude this interview for Waste Recycling India magazine, do you have any last few sentences that you would like to say, each one of you?
I slightly differ with Mr. Ram.
Okay.
That recycling is something which we should definitely encourage. And of course, the value addition of recycling is often overestimated, but still, nevertheless, it must be done. When it comes to that, I also tend to believe that the plastics made out of fossil fuel, gas, the oil reserves, when they are incinerated, the energy is reclaimed back.
So what you're saying is plastics are nothing but petroleum.
Yes.
And when we are reclaiming the energy,
when we are using petroleum elsewhere for energy, why don't we just as well use petroleum inside a waste energy
and
plant?
also, for example, in one of the corporations, I do not remember where, we are actually a payment of about 1% or so is being deducted by the corporation as a pre-agreed contract to promote awareness. Now, this again, the ULB should not expect the operator to do that. As somebody said in the morning, this is a local self-help government. It's an urban local body. It is elected by people. So they should themselves educate. It is not that some operator has to educate, but we do that. Ramki Foundation carries this. In fact, we use many mediums of FOCO, local language and other things to promote. We involve the local self-help groups in the collection and transportation systems, and therefore we encourage the kabaddi ballers to do the recycling, and only after that only we carry the waste to the dump sites. So it is an inclusive. But the fear of the recycling not being there is coming out of the perceived thinking that there is a higher market for recycling at this moment, which is not correct. It might be the case tomorrow.
Okay. So those will be your concluding remarks. All right. How about you, Mr. Rao?
See, if not today, maybe after 5-6 years, after a decade, India will definitely becomes one of the strongest waste-to-energy nations in the world. So that is a reality. That is the process of evolution. So we are optimistic, and we are very curious to see as many waste-to-energy plant as India can really develop and build.
Okay.
So that's going to happen.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you again. It's been a really long day here at the Waste to Energy Research and Technology Council India second brainstorming session. So I thank Mr. Shastri from Ramki and Mr. Srinivas Rao from Hitachi again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.